Hello, my name is Bart Rickard, Manager of Customer Enablement with Golf Genius Software. In this video, we're going to go over the steps that need to be taken before the day of an event, and what we call event preparation. On the left, you'll see the list of steps we'll be going through today. The first step in creating an event is creating the event, and you can do that by going to the master roster as you see here. Click on Create an Event, League or Trip, name the event, select the category, and then select the season. Click Get Started. You'll first be directed to the Event Setup Wizard. This wizard is a tool that can be used to guide you through to set up an event, and especially helpful for beginner users. However, for the demo today, we are going to skip the wizard. After bypassing the wizard, you'll be directed to the manager site for the event. And the next step that we need to take is editing and reviewing the event settings. And they can be found by going to Event, Event Profile. Now, when this event was created, these settings were cloned over from the default settings in your Customer Center. So hopefully during your account setup process, you went and reviewed and set up your default settings for your entire account. However, it's always important to quickly review and make sure these settings are what you would like for this specific event. For instance, you can come here to change the name of the event. You can go to different tabs. For instance, if I go to handicap settings, I could scroll down and I could say, maybe I want to disregard using Rule 3-5 for this specific event. Or if I go to rounds and scheduling, I could say maybe in this event we typically play in threesomes instead of foursomes. Going into other sections that you may want to change, for instance, tournaments and scoring. There's many tournaments and scoring options, including hole-by-hole scores, 9-hole totals, 18-hole totals. What would you be entering? So maybe, for instance, only for this event, you'll be entering 18-hole totals. And finally, for those using open registration using directories, go to the directories and registration page. And you can select what directory this event should go into. Furthermore, you can enable open registration by selecting the option down below, and also enable credit card processing, as well as setting a player limit and a wait list. So again, it's very important to go through all these settings to make sure that they're exactly what you'd like for this event. To learn more details about all these settings, go to our knowledge base and search Event Profile. After you finish reviewing your event settings, you can go on and review and edit your event portal. Now again, your event portal is your event website for your players, spectators, other members to go and view information for that event. For instance, tournament results, pairings, statistics, and much, much more. To go and review your event portal, go to Apps, Member Portal Address. When the event is created, the event portal is cloned from the default event portal that you've created in your Customer Center. So in most cases, if you set up a default portal already, everything will be very close to what you're looking for. For instance, your banner, background image, the sections and pages will be exactly where you want them. However, you could further edit to meet the needs of this specific event. For instance, you may want to delete a section, and you could delete pages, you could rename pages, and you could go ahead and add pages as well. For instance, I may want to add the course handicap tee. And maybe you want to add an information page about this specific event. So I may say new page on home. And I want to create a collage page. And here I could go in and add text and say 2018 Ladies Opener, 8 o'clock a.m. shotgun start, 12 o'clock p.m. lunch, 4-person scramble. Save the page, and now I'll have a splash page with some basic information about this event. So again, make sure and go and review the event portal to make sure it's exactly what you like for this specific event. To learn more about customizing your portal, go to our knowledge base and search Customize Portal. Now let's navigate back to the manager site. One of the biggest and most important steps to setting up an event is adding your players. And there's multiple ways to do it, but before we go on and talk about the ways to add players, remember, if you're using our open registration feature where players can go and register themselves online to sign up, the event roster will automatically be populated, and you, the manager, may not have to take any additional steps, as the players will be doing all of the registering. If you're not using open registration, there's many different ways to add players, and you can look at these different options by going to the golfers menu. First, let's take a look at importing golfers. You could import golfers and their data from the master roster. You could import it from GIN if you're using GIN, and you could import players from previous events and leagues. Let's, for instance, add some players from the master roster. You could search, add the player. You could simply select from the master roster and select some players. Scroll down and you'll see all the players and their information. Once you've added all the players and you've selected them, click Import and they'll be populated down below. A couple other things to review on this page. You can also add a TBD. For instance, if you have a member that wants to bring a guest and they're not sure who their guest is going to be yet, you can simply click on Add TBD and we'll add a TBD player. You can later, once you get the player's information, go into the player roster and change it from TBD to the actual player's name with their handicap index and other information. So it's important to understand that TBD will hold that spot for that player. You also see we could also create teams as you're adding players. For instance, if you are creating 4-person teams, you can select 4 players from the master roster and we'll create a team for those 4 players. And then we could add 4 more players from the master roster and we'll create another team of 4 for them. So it's 2 birds, 1 stone. We'll add the players and we'll create the teams. Now it's also important to understand that you may or may not have to create teams if you're using a team-based event. To learn more on whether or not you have to create teams, you can click on this link down here below. Another option in adding players is doing it manually by one by typing the information. And you can do that by going to Golfers, Manually Add Players to Roster. You'll see you can go in, enter their name, their email, handicap index, GIN or GolfNet or any handicap service ID that they use, and you can also enter a custom field. After you click Save Roster, the player will then be added to the event roster. The last method of adding players to an event that we're going to go over is uploading players via Spreadsheet. And you can do that by going to Golfers, Upload Roster from Spreadsheet. Now this method is frequently used in cases where the players in the event are not on your master roster. Think of cases when you have outside outings at your club, corporate outings at your club, where the players are all guests of your club. You can take all the information from these players, compile it on a spreadsheet, and upload the players instantly via Spreadsheet. Take a look at this example spreadsheet for an outing. This is very simple. It has a column for first name, last name, handicap index, and foursome. The foursome column identifies what foursome every player is in, so this makes it easy down the road to create pairings quickly using that column. Add any other columns of information that you may need, for instance, email, phone number, the tee they will be playing, or any other custom field that may be useful for that outing. After you've compiled that spreadsheet, make sure to save it, and go back to the upload page, select Choose File, and select that spreadsheet from your desktop or your computer. After the spreadsheet's been analyzed, you may be asked to match some columns. For instance, our system recognizes that the column in the spreadsheet for first name means first name. Last name means last name. Very easy. However, we may ask you to match other columns if necessary. For instance, what does H.I. mean? Well, that means handicap index. So you will have to simply click there, click on index to match the index attribute on our side, and we'll ensure that the data from that column is uploaded as a handicap index. Now, any unmatched columns will simply be uploaded as custom fields, so it's certainly okay to leave many columns unmatched if they were custom fields. Once complete, click Import Spreadsheet, and the players and all their information will be uploaded to the event. Now let's move on to the next step of adding rounds or a round to an event. To do that, go to Calendar, Add Rounds. And again, events can have one or multiple rounds within the event. For instance, you may have one 18-hole round event, for instance, a men's opening day. In that case, you'll only be creating one round. However, you may have a 36-hole event that requires 2 rounds. Or you may have a league that plays a round every week, so you'll be creating a round for every week. To create the rounds, simply click on the dates. If you have 2 rounds, click on the date twice. And you'll be asked to say, do you want to add another round to that date, or do you want to delete one of the rounds within that date? I'll say delete. And again, I'll delete that round. So in this example, I'm going to create an 18-hole round for the 24th and another 18-hole round for the 25th. Click Save, and the round will be created. The next step we're going to talk about is creating teams. If your event does not have teams, you can obviously skip this step. However, if your event does use teams, we first need to talk about whether or not you actually even have to create a team list. Take a look at this chart as we describe whether or not you have to create a team list or not. In summary, if you're playing a single round tournament where the pairings can be used to determine the teams, for instance, every foursome is a team, or players 1 and 2 are a team, and players in position 3 and 4 in every foursome are a team for 2-person teams, then you do not need to create a team list. You can skip this step. And when we create the tournament, we'll just simply say pair versus field or foursome versus field. However, if that's not the case, you will need to create team lists. If you do need to create team lists, you can do this by going to Golfers, Event, Divisions, Flights, and Teams. Manage Team Lists. Now there are a couple options in how to create teams. Obviously you want to name the teams, so I'll say Ladies Opening Day Teams with a team size of 2. You can create them manually, so simply you'll have a list of all your players in the event and you can select the players, click Create Team. Select the players for the next team, create a new team. Or you can create the teams by using a custom field. So if you have a custom field that, for instance, you may have uploaded a spreadsheet of players that defines the teams, you can instantly create teams using that custom field. Or if you want to create teams by entry numbers, for instance, create the teams in which the players were entered into the system. Down below, you can select the team name format. The team name format is the format in which the teams are listed on the leaderboard, scorecards, reports, and other areas. So for the sake of example, let's create team size of 4 manually. I'll select the 4 players on the first team. I'll click Save. The team will be created. All the remaining players left in the event will be here on the right. I'll click on the remaining players, click Save, and the teams will be created. So for this event, we have 2 teams created. Going on to the next step, we are going to create pairings for the event. To do that, go to Rounds, Create New Pairings. And there are a number of options for you in helping creating these pairings. You'll see automatic scheduling, so you're telling us to randomly create pairings using a certain set of parameters that you select. You can create pairings by previous results in pairings, so if you already have a round complete and you want to create pairings using the results from that round, you can use that option. You can create pairings using entry numbers, so we'll create the pairings in which the order of the players were entered into the system. You can use manual pairings, so you can simply see a list of all the players in the event, select the players, click Create Pairing Group. Select players, click Create Pairing Group. And lastly, you can create pairings using a custom field. So for instance, if you've uploaded a spreadsheet with a column that identifies what foursome every player is in, you can use that column in that custom field to create the pairings. For the sake of example, let's go to automatic scheduling, and we're going to create pairings by ABCD. Click Next, Continue, and your pairings for the event in that specific round will be created. And you'll be directed to the Edit Pairings page, which is also found underneath the Rounds menu. Now there's a few important steps that need to be taken here. For instance, the most important step is setting the course and tee. We need to know what tee every player is playing from. To do that, click Set Course and Tee. Select the tee the players will be playing from. Select All. Click Go. And you'll see they'll be marked off that specific tee. Now there may be cases where multiple tees are being played within the round. For instance, maybe Brenda is playing, instead of the white tee like all the other players, she's playing from the blue tee. So select Brenda at top, she'll highlight in orange. Select the tee she's playing. Click go. And you'll see above, as you hover over, she is playing off the blue tee while everybody else is playing off the whites. Now, if you have default tees set up for all your players, this is a very easy step event to event. You can simply go to Holland's Golf Club and you can select, for instance, you're playing the East Course, default tees. And when you click go, we will set all the players off their default tees that you have selected for them in the Customer Center. To learn more about setting up default tees, search default tees in our knowledge base. You also see you can set up tee times and shotgun starts. For instance, I'm going to click set tee time, and we're going to have tee times starting at 8 a.m. at 9-minute intervals, starting on hole 1. Select all the parent groups will be highlighted above, click go, and they will all be assigned tee times. And on the left, you'll see further edit pairing management tools. You could swap players by simply clicking on one player, then the other, and we'll swap them. You could swap pairs. You could move pairings. You could add new rows. For instance, if you have a new parent group, click on new row, and you can add more players. So I can click on add players to this new row. I'll click on new golfer, enter the information, save, and I'll enter the empty cell in which to put her in. Once you're happy with how the pairings look, click Save Pairings. The final event preparation step that we're going to discuss is creating the tournament for the event. Now, the tournament is the format, the game, the type of competition that's being played within the event. And you can create one or more tournaments for every event. If you're creating a multi-round tournament played over multiple rounds, for instance, a 36-hole stroke play tournament or a ringers tournament, they'll be created by going to event multi-round tournaments. However, for this example, we're going to create a single round tournament within round 1 of this event. So I'm going to rounds, tournaments. And there's 3 different types of tournaments in which you could add. At the bottom, you'll see add user score tournament. User score tournaments are tournaments like longest drives, closest to the pins, best stressed, anything where the manager selects the winner of the tournament. A linked tournament is a tournament where you'll be linking 2 separate tournaments together to create an aggregate result. To learn more about linked tournaments, search linked tournament in our knowledge base. And the last is add a new tournament. And this is a likely area where you'll be going to create most of your tournaments, like stroke play tournaments, skins tournaments, match play tournaments, and other formats. Click on add new tournament. Name the tournament. So this is what the tournament's going to look like on the leaderboard. So I may say best ball of 4. I did not create a team list, so I'm not going to use teams. Instead, I'm going to select foursome versus field. So I'm saying every foursome in the field are going to be playing as a team. And we're going to be playing stroke play. However, you'll see you can create match play, Stableford quota, skins, Eagles games, Nassau games as well. What balls are to be counted? Are we creating best ball? Are we counting best ball selected by hole? For instance, on the even holes, we'll count 2 balls, and the odd holes, we'll count 1. Or are we doing best ball selected by par? Maybe best ball on the par 3s, best 2 balls on the par 4s, and so on. You can do average of all balls. You can do a scramble. You could do Lone Ranger and other games. And you can even go advanced and really define what balls are to be counted. To learn more about the advanced format, search advanced balls in our knowledge base. Scrolling down, what type of handicap are we using? Are you using USJ Net? Are you using USJ Net off lowest, typically used for match play? Or are we using Callaway Peoria? In this case, we're going to be playing USJ Net off 90%. What tie-breaking method are you using? Are you going to retain ties? Or are you going to do last to first? Or the USJ method, 9-6-3-1? And you can enter points in purse. For instance, I want to do by first, second, third. I want to award the first place team 200, the second place team 100. There's advanced options for handicapping. For instance, you may want to set a max or minimum handicap index or handicap, or you may want to be able to use decimal handicaps. All these options are in the advanced handicap options here. You could also set cut lines if they're using cut lines for a multi-round tournament. And there's also some advanced options for your tournament display. Once you're happy with how the tournament is set up, click Save. and the tournament is set up. It can be viewed here on the summary page. Now again, you could add multiple tournaments within a round. For instance, I can go back here and add a new tournament, add a skins tournament. Thank you for watching our video presentation. As always, if you need assistance with our software, feel free to utilize our knowledge base.